Hello, everybody. It's almost Oscar time. The nominations are out, and I'm here to give you all my predictions for every single category in the Oscar race. And guess what? I've seen them all. Now, a little bit before I get started, if you've seen my other videos, you know that I have actually only gotten one or two wrong every year for the last couple of years. I win all my Oscar pools. For some reason, the last year, the only one I got wrong was that I thought Austin Butler was going to win for Elvis, and instead Brendan Fraser won. But I got everything else right. I explained my logic as to how I come to my conclusion, and I'm going to go through every single category. Are you ready? Let's go. Category number one. Now, I'm not going in any particular order, but the first one I'm going to go with is actor in a leading role. I've seen all of the movies, by the way, and here are the nominees. And I'm going to tell you who's going to win. The answer? Paul Giamatti. And the reason is that even though I love Cillian Murphy and Oppenheimer, and I did like Bradley Cooper and Maestro, it's not enough for them to win. And the other two movies, honestly, I saw Rustin and I saw American Fiction. I wasn't crazy about them. And I feel like Paul Giamatti has been in a lot of great movies lately and just hasn't gotten the award. So I feel like it's finally his year. Now, there is one other reason I go with Paul Giamatti, and that's because I also look at every movie and say to myself, what is the one best thing about that movie? And if that movie was to only win one Oscar, what would it be for? And in the case of The Holdovers, Paul Giamatti is really one of the only two possible things that I think are Oscar worthy in that movie. Best Supporting Actor. Well, here's the nominees. Sterling Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling, Mark Ruffalo. First of all, I don't think Ryan Gosling is going to win for Barbie. I think there's been a whole lot of hype about who got nominated and who didn't for Barbie. But guess what? It's not going to be Ryan Gosling. I also don't think it's going to be De Niro because, honestly, I saw it. It was good, but this is not a De Niro Oscar-winning role. And same thing with Sterling Brown. I just don't think it's worthy of an Oscar. I also don't think Poor Things, Mark Ruffalo, he was very good. I sure think he could maybe be the upset, but I just don't think he's going to win this one. I think this is going to be the Robert Downey Jr. I just feel like when I think about what was the best acting of these five, it was Robert Downey Jr. When I think about who was really the best actor of that movie, Oppenheimer, it was Robert Downey Jr. He also had great makeup. I think it's an easy pick. Next category is actress in a leading role. Here are the nominees. And my prediction is going to be Lily Gladstone. She's been winning a lot of the awards lately, and even though I did like Annette Bening in this movie, and I did like Carey Mulligan in Maestro, I just think that this is the year of Lily Gladstone. Again, when I think of the one thing that the movie needs to be awarded for, of all the things it should be awarded for, it's actually her in this movie. So I give it to her. These other actresses, Emma Stone from Poor Things, Anatomy of a Fall, Nyad. Actually, the truth is, a lot of these movies, for Oscar voters, they're not even available yet unless they sent them screeners. They're not on streaming platforms yet, but Killers of the Flower Moon is. I think this is actually kind of a lock. Moving on, actress in a supporting role. Well, this also, I think, is weirdly another lock, but not because I agree with it, but just because of what I'm hearing in the Hollywood scene. And it's going to be the actress Divine Joy Randolph from The Holdovers. I did think she was not good in the movie. I didn't think she was Oscar worthy, but I do think she's going to win. I don't think America Ferrera is going to win for Barbie or Jodie Foster for Nyad, even though they were both good. I think that The Color Purple is not going to win anything that has to do with acting. Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer was good, but she wasn't the Oscar-worthy person in that movie the way that Robert Downey Jr. is. So I'm going to go with The Holdovers getting 2 Oscars for acting. Best Animated Feature. Well, this is actually kind of interesting because a lot of people think that the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is going to win. It did win for the first one. I don't think it's going to win for the same movie, just the sequel. Actually, I did think the second one was really good. I actually do think it's going to go, however, to the foreign film The Boy and the Heron. If you're a fan of those classic animes like Spirited Away, this is right up that alley and feels amazing. And the story is good. It's emotional. It's kind of got all the package of an animated film. Well, now we're going to get into the subcategories, and this is where things get really interesting because for the most part, every single subcategory has their own union, the cinematographers union, the editors union, the costume designers union, and almost 9 out of 10 times the Oscar goes to the person who wins that award. So in this particular case, this is where Oppenheimer starts to clean up. Even though Killers of the Flower Moon is there and Maestro is there, it's going to be Oppenheimer. Now, let's get to costume design. Now, this is where I always feel like costume design opens things up. Killers of the Flower Moon is nice, but I also don't think it stands out enough. So then the question comes down to, is it going to be the Oscar favorite Oppenheimer? And this is where I think no. This is where I think that the cleverness of Barbie is going to come through, and it's going to get to see its first award. I think Barbie is going to win for Best Costume Design. Now, another big one, the Best Directing. Great directors this time. I love Christopher Nolan. I love Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese even already has one, and truthfully, he should have gotten one for Goodfellas, and he didn't. Then you have these first-timers here who did Poor Things and Anatomy of a Fall, and then you have Jonathan Glazer, who's been around doing Zone of Interest. I think that for the most part, those three should just be happy to be nominated. And really, this is a contest between Martin Scorsese and Christopher Nolan. And Christopher Nolan has got such an amazing breadth of work, and this Oppenheimer is a great film. No brainer, Christopher Nolan. Best documentary feature, and this is interest to me. I always watch all the documentaries, and I always feel like there's really good ones in there, but that's not the one who always wins. The one who always wins is usually the subject matter. It seems to be the social issue of the day. And while these other documentaries are great, they're just not dealing with the war in the Ukraine. And this is a camera that spent 20 days in Ukraine during the war. This is going to be the winner. 20 days in Mariupol. Documentary short films, and the short films are very unique. And I got to tell you, the three short films, a live action, a documentary, and an animation, these three Oscars are always the toss-up. And the truth is, if you really want to win an Oscar pool, these are the three categories that you need to get right. Fortunately, if you go to websites like The Wrap, where they have Oscar predictions, they seem to know every year exactly what's going to win, and they are basically 10 for 10 on all three of these categories. So let's take a look at this first one. The ABCs of Book Banning, The Barber of Little Rock, The Last Repair Shop, and I can't even pronounce that last one, Island in Between. Honestly, I've only seen a few of these, but it doesn't matter because the answer is going to be the ABCs of Book Banning because it's topical. Sheila Nevins is finally a producer instead of just being an executive at HBO. It would be time for her to have an Oscar. Moving on. Best Film Editing. What's ironic to me about Best Film Editing is for the longest time, the Best Film Editing Award went to the longest film, which I always thought was weird because the truth is a film that was so long usually meant that somebody couldn't make decisions in the editing room to make it shorter. But in this particular case, I do think that the Oscar for Best Film Editing is going to go to Oppenheimer. I don't necessarily agree with it. I also know Thelma Schumacher has been Scorsese's longtime editor, but it's just the year of Oppenheimer. And I also feel like sometimes the director of a movie and their editor usually follows. International feature. Okay, well, this one is also, to me, an easy one. And the reason is because if there's a film that gets nominated in the Best Feature Film category that is also nominated for Best Picture, it's going to go here. In previous years, with the exception of, say, Parasite, where you actually had them win the Best Picture, usually the foreign film doesn't win in the Best Picture category, but if a foreign film is in the Best Picture category and also in the International Film category, it wins here. In this particular case, The Zone of Interest. International film, no-brainer. Best Makeup and Hair. And to me, this one always is the zag of the whole thing because you have people who are voting on really the best makeover. And if you look at the choices here, you have some really good makeover movies. I don't think Society of the Snow or Poor Things is going to do it. I just think they're too small a film. You had an amazing job making Robert Downey Jr. look old in Oppenheimer. You also had a great job in Bradley Cooper with the big schnoz in Maestro. But also, I don't know if you've seen Golda, but as in Golda Meir, they did such an amazing job making her look exactly like Golda Meir. So in this particular case, I actually think this is a really tough category. And so I'm actually going to go ahead, and I would say I'm going to give it to Maestro, but there was a little bit of a backlash about people thinking that his nose looked a little too stereotypical Jewish, whatever. So I'm actually, as much as I want to lean into that, not going to go there, and I'm actually going to go with Golda. Best original score. Now, this is not the best original song, which I'll get to next, but the score obviously is the whole music thing. And I am going to tell you that it's probably not going to be Indiana Jones, even though it is John Williams with his 1 gazillionth nomination. I am going to tell you, however, that Robbie Robertson recently died. And Robbie Robertson is the longtime composer for Scorsese and has never won an Oscar. So I think it's time to honor Robbie Robertson with an Oscar for Killers of the Flower Moon. Next, Best Original Song. This is the one that to me is also a little bit of a squirrely thing. There's certain years where you know it's a slam dunk, like You've Got a Friend in Me or Elton John winning for Beauty and the Beast. But then some years you just have songs that really don't mean anything. And look at the choices here. We've got 2 songs from Barbie. We've got that Indian song from Killers of the Flower Moon, and we actually have the song It Never Went Away, which was the song that Jean Baptiste did in the documentary, and this Flamin' Hot, which I actually don't know because I didn't see it, but it's a Diane Warren song. Generally, I feel like I have had way too much of the Billie Eilish, personally. I'm so tired of Billie Eilish. I'm ready for it to go away. At the same time, Mark Ronson, who has like won Oscars for La La Land and something else recently, he did I'm Just Ken. I'm sort of tired of them. So I'm going to think that believe it or not, the world is sort of really in love with John Baptiste. I think it's going to go to It Never Went Away. The big one, Best Picture, 10 nominees: American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, Zone of Interest. And this is no-brainer, I think. I just think that Academy voters, looking at a lot of these small films, foreign films, I loved Past Lives. I thought it actually was one of the best films of the year. The way the voting process is now, with the way that you have to get more than 50% of the votes or it goes to the next film and the next film, it's created wins in the last couple of years that have been unexpected. But in this particular case, I think because there's so much of a dominance towards Oppenheimer that it just is going to go to Oppenheimer this year. Production design is another great category which tends to follow its union. There's Barbie's, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, literally like the same 5. So for best production design, I go back to what I said at the beginning, which is look at a film and say, what is the thing that if you had to give it one award, it would be the best thing for? And in this particular thing, I'm going to go with Poor Things. I think it's not going to win any other award, so it might as well get what it was really good at, and that was the production design. So I choose Poor Things. For animated short film, again, I think if you just do what the rap says, they're right 10 out of 10 times, and they say it's going to be Letters to a Pig. Letter to a Pig, go with Letter to a Pig. For best live action short film, I actually think this is also very easy. And the reason is because Wes Anderson makes great feature films. He should have won the Oscar, I guess, perhaps several times, but never has. So he's gone ahead and made a short film. It's exactly in his style. And here's a chance to finally give Wes Anderson what may be his only Oscar. It may be as a short film, but it's going to be The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Best Sound is going to be a continuation of Oppenheimer steamrolling all of the Oscars that it's going to win. Best Sound, Oppenheimer. Now, Best Visual Effects. Now, to me, this one is interesting because I don't feel that they like to give it to like a popcorn movie. They like to give it to an effects movie that was worthy, but they also don't like to give it to sequels. So along that lines, Guardian of the Galaxy 3 can be crossed off. Mission Impossible can be crossed off. I also think Godzilla Minus One can be crossed off because it's just a popcorn genre movie, which leads to The Creator, which actually was very good. I think it was great visual effects. And Napoleon, which also was good. But the problem with Napoleon is that it was almost so good that you didn't even know there were visual effects. The Creator stands out as having been a special effects driven movie. I go with The Creator. All right, now we get into the final two, and this is where I think it gets really interesting. And that's because we've already talked about films and what they're worthy of winning an Oscar for. And so in these films, we have Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Zone of Interest, Barbie, American Fiction. And I've already said to you that I really think Oppenheimer, that 4 of these 5 films have already gotten an Oscar in a different category: Zone of Interest, Poor Things, Oppenheimer, and Barbie. And on the one hand, I'd love to say, oh, well, therefore American Fiction should get it just so it has its own Oscar. However, Greta Gerwig did not get nominated for Best Director, but she is one of the writers. If they really wanted to honor Greta Gerwig, they would give her the Screenplay award and she could accept it here, and it would be a big deal. Alternatively, it could just be a straightforward bet and go straight to Oppenheimer because Chris Nolan wrote it, and then he also gets Best Director, Best Producer, and Best Writer. I think it's a two-way race here between Barbie and Oppenheimer, so I'm actually going to go, as an upset, Barbie. Finally, the final category is Best Writing, the original screenplay. And again, I like to give it to one of the films that maybe hasn't had an Oscar yet. And so to me, when I look at these films, there was one film that to me was my favorite film of the year that was nominated for Best Picture that didn't win anything else. So I think it's going to come here. I think it's also written by the same director. So by awarding this woman, you're also awarding her essentially the film, and her Past Lives is going to be the Best Original Screenplay. Well, that's my list. I don't know what you think. We can find out after Oscars how they did. I'll post a follow-up if you're interested. Hope this was helpful. I hope you win the Oscar bet. Hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, you can always go become a member of this channel. You can sign up for my Patreon page. I do lots of documentaries. I do lots of entertainment videos. Hope you liked it.